Right. Well, good morning, everybody. I've got some, or we've got some handouts here. So if you'd be kind enough to pass this on this side for me, sir. Thank you. If you'd be kind enough to get these on this side for me. Thank you very much. Just some, rather than writing it all over the whiteboard, we'll do it on the, do it on a handout form. Yes, it's on YouTube already. Yeah.
Sure. Like
Thursday night, 7 p.m. is when I dropped.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, guys and gals. Appreciate it.
I don't know. I saved this box.
I'll take a picture.
Nice. I like
I'll take another one.
I'll take another one.
it.
Are you out? We run out?
No, we're good. We're good. I just wanted 2, so John gave me 30.
Okay.
So we're all set.
Awesome. Okay. Well, this will be more fun than that. I remember my music teachers. I remember a lot of things my music teacher was in elementary school, man. So it's like burned in my brain. So hopefully this does the same for you. So we are on step 2 here, which is music basics. We're going to look into some basic fundamental things, and so we put those in a handout form for you to reference. Bring this back with you next week if you would. We'll have more if you forget them, but if you want to bring these back next week, we'll put it in your Bible. Be helpful, and we might refer to this quite a bit as we go along. So just real quick before we get going, just a recap. Anything from your mind from last week? Anything that's kind of stuck to your mind that you woke up in the middle of the night on Tuesday and thought about? Any thoughts, questions? I do have an answer to a question that came up last week that we couldn't answer. I think Annette brought something up. What's that?
What was the question?
The question was, we talked about hymns and songs and spiritual songs. Does anybody know what the difference between a hymn and a psalm is?
Psalm from Psalm?
A hymn and a song?
Psalm. The difference is between a hymn and a psalm.
It had it all in the Bible. Hymns, songs, all 3
When does
words.
something become a hymn? That's the question.
Yeah.
It becomes a hymn. It becomes a hymn when it has something called meter. And we're going to look at that today. We're going to look at meter today. When does something actually become a hymn? So every hymn has some form of meter in it. And so that's what we're actually going to look at
So
that
a
today.
psalm is more of a saying, or
Song, yeah.
the words.
Yeah. Poetry,
Oh, okay.
thoughts, insight.
I was
Proverbs.
wondering why it was all 3 of those words there.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Now, psalm is like a spiritual statement or prose, maybe poetry. It becomes a hymn. Now it's put to some form of meter. So we're actually going to look at that today. When does something actually turn into a... And so we've seen examples of psalms that have converted into hymns. We sing some of those, right? And so that's going to be a lot of fun I think we're going to have as we go through this. So quick, brief history of the music we sing. What is this stuff we're doing? Like, what is this that we're using? Well, the style of music in churches today, in the Western world, in churches predominantly in the Protestant world especially, is something called Western music. And I'm not talking about like country and Western. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Western music. And it became Western music because it came out of the European sphere, as opposed to Eastern music, which was Middle Eastern, India. That was the type of music that was very predominant in the religious world for centuries. And we talked a little bit last week about when music started to evolve. So this Western music came about, what we use today, what we know, this symbology, this language, started to evolve in the late 1400s, early 1500s. And music, what I think is really kind of cool to think about is music, written music, is a language, really. It is somewhat of a mathematical language. It deals with ratios, intervals, relationships between things, frequencies, very mathematical. It's a mathematical language. So it's kind of a way to describe sounds we make and put it into some type of a coherent form like a language is. Rather than just gibberish, it starts to coalesce into something that you can interpret and read and turn into something else. So this came into form in the early 1500s. We'll do a quiz on this, but I think this is actually kind of fascinating. There's 2 modes that we sing in, or that Western music is in. 2 primary modes, Ionian and Aeolian. Check it out. This is just an A mode. Check it out. That is Ionian mode. get a difference? So that's a major, so you've got a major key. And we're going to talk about that as we get through this. And Aeolian are songs in a minor key. Night with Edmund Pinion. It's the one I'm always forgetting the name
Sing
of.
hallelujah to the
Sing
Lord.
Hallelujah to the Lord. It's in a minor key. It's going to sound different. It's like, ooh, that sounds weird. It sounds different. I'll Fly Away, major key. Right? You can hear the mode that the song is in. This came about through this way. This didn't exist in the first century. This mode, this kind of singing they were doing in the first century isn't what we're doing today, by even close measure. In fact, Western music keys are based on these major and minor scales, and all the music that we're singing, and I haven't seen it yet in our Christian world, or I say our world, in the Protestant world. Hang on one second. We are in a diatonic scale. Everything is in the same language. What they sang in the first century was something called a pentatonic scale. Can you believe we have 12 notes, basically, that we use in our 12 notes. Those 12 notes didn't exist in the first century. Can you believe that? They used 4 notes. They used 5 notes. Everything was built on these 5 notes. Could you imagine a song that only has those 5 notes? That's kind of strange.
Was it more chanting?
It was yeah. In fact, I'm going to go into, but Gregorian chants were built on that. Middle Eastern music. But if you imagine, if you're only using these 5 notes, if that's all you're doing, your melody can only be those 5 notes. Whatever you do can only be those 5 notes. Our melody has 12. Think of how much more flavorful it can be. So this is like it opens up. It's like a language that can express itself more freely. Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna say, a lot of the time, major is thought of to sound happier and
Upbeat.
more upbeat,
Yeah.
and minor keys are usually like sad tones, anything that you hear that's kind of
Serious.
angry, serious. Yeah,
Serious, somber.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
think of
that would describe a minor key.
right now. How does that sound? Just totally different, right? It just sounds weird, right? It sounds like, ooh, you're in a bad mood, or you're down, you're somber, or something. So these different modes, this all came about in the early 1500s. I think it's kind of interesting. This is the language we are speaking. And I think it's kind of interesting that it's a very mathematical concept. So if you're into that, you're thinking about, in fact, this tone right here is A440. That is a frequency that the universal world has said that is base frequency tone that everything's going to be based off of. And this is a piece of trivia. 1939 is when they said this is going to be A. 1939. That's pretty recent to say that is the A that everybody's going to use. Before that, it was all over the place. It's whatever your oboe tuned to. It was like, oh, it's kind of all over it. So it's fairly recent that you can see this as a kind of a recent language. I think it's kind of fascinating. So all Western music is in at least one key, one of those 12 keys, A flat through G sharp, which by the way is the same thing. Anybody catch that? We'll work on that. So here's a piece of trivia. Now I don't think we really have it on our slides. I don't think it does. But in the songbooks that we use, you ever notice these 2 little letters right here? You ever notice those letters? You know what those mean?
Which one?
There's 2 in our songbook. There'll be a 2 little letters right here. That's the key. So the first letter denotes the key that the song is in. The second letter denotes what note the melody starts on. So in this case, don't worry about the notes right now, but this is in the key of G, but the first note is D. So it helps the songwriter to pitch it correctly. And it helps anyone who's singing to be able to understand what the relationship is between the key note and the basic melody note and things like that. So if you ever wonder about that, that's what that's saying. But what we're really going to look at today, so a song can change key, and that's called modulation. And sometimes we'll do that. I know George has done this many times. You'll modulate, maybe when you go to the last verse or something, we might modulate the key. The key will go from G to A, right? And you'll feel this, whoa, it kind of like modulates. You almost always modulate up, by the way. If you modulate down, it sounds like you're getting kind of down. You always modulate up, right? It feels, not always, but it feels better. But what we're going to look at today, the main thing we're going to look at today is meter. This is our main emphasis today. So a song will be in a meter, which is a grouping of temporal units called beats in the regular measures, also called the time signature. You guys have probably taken a music class, you've probably looked at this before. So what we have here is the numbers tell us what meter this is in, or what time signature this song is in. The top number indicates how many beats are in a measure, so you can kind of, and the bottom number tells you what is a single beat. So in this case, you've got quarter notes, which you can see on your handout what a quarter note is. Quarter note is a single beat in a measure, and there's 3 of them. What is kind of really cool is every one of these different time signatures we're going to look at is a different feel, a different mode, a different meter. I use an example of if I need to move across the room or down the hallway, there's lots of ways I can move myself down the hallway. I can march down the hallway, right? I can waltz down the hallway. I can skip down the hallway. I can walk down the hallway. I can hop down the hallway. There's lots of, that's all different meter. Songs all have the same way of getting down the hallway, right? Of getting down. Well, they feel different. In fact, Brian's going to demonstrate this boldly here in just a few minutes, isn't he?
Sure.
Sure he is. So in this case, you've got...
do it boldly, but
Do it boldly. So we're going to see that 3/4 time sounds totally different than 6/8 time. So in 6/8 time, you've got 6 beats per measure, but an 8th note now is 1 beat. So it's a different feel. 3/4 time is a bump, 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 bump. A waltz is 3/4. Bump, don't imagine that feel. Don't. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. What is 6/8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's like you're up, 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 like you're skipping. Like a waltz is, 1, 2, we're down the hallway. A 6/8 is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you're feeling that emphasis in a different place. So when the songwriter is writing this to have a different feel, they're going to structure it in a time signature that lets us feel that meter in that certain way. 2/2 time. Think about this. In this case, a half note, see a half note in your handout, is now a single beat. This guy right here. And there's 2 beats per measure. So these quarter notes now are half beats. So why would I use 2/2 time? Anybody already think about why I would do that? It's slower. It's generally a slower feel. So instead of having a bunch of 16th notes and on this overcramming of 8th notes, I'm just going to scale it down and make a half note a beat. And now my quarter notes are my half beats. So it's a feel, right? You're doing for feel. Yes, sir?
Wouldn't that make it faster?
No, make it slower. Because I think about, what's another 2/2 song?
If the quarter notes are now like 8th notes,
Yeah, but
that's going to go faster.
my single beat's a half note. So my quarter note is half of that. So my single beat's a half. Now we're not talking about tempo yet. We're talking about just how do I want to describe this. It's kind of when we look at 9/8, 9/8 and 12/8, you'll see why we put it in that versus something else, because I don't want to measure that's like the whole staff. So here are all the common time signatures that you'll find in almost every hymn. There might be a goofy one hidden there every once in a while, but this is generally the most common time signature. So if you think of 2/4, count your blessings, name them one by one, very marchy, right? 3/4, oh worship the King, ding, dum, 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 boom, boom, boom. Feel that? How that's totally different. 4/4, I'll fly away. One red morning when it's like this or 4/4, right? 3/2. So again, now we're switching to 3/2. When my love to Christ grows. See how that just slowed down? It's better in 3/2 than it was in 6/4, which is what you'd convert it to. Burdens are lifted, 6/8. With troubles and feel that skipping emphasis. Blessed assurance, 9/8. Blessed assurance. Now you've got 3, and when you're in 8 time, you're using these little triplet packs. Well, 6/8 has 2 triplets. 9/8 has 3 triplets. So 9/8's like a waltz, only it's got these little triplet packets in it, right? So think of the song Blessed Assurance. Brian's going to lead us in a second. Blessed assurance, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1. And you feel that it's a waltz, but it's got these triplets in it. 2, 2. And then 12/8. I love 12/8. You got 2 6/8s packed together. Now, the general rule of thumb is it's like just like we speak, the accent is on the first beat. That's what you're trying to do. The accent's on the first beat. So that's why you would go to 12/8 versus 6/8, because you've got the accent. Boom! These 12 beats later, you got this accent feel. Besides that, it makes your measure really, really big. So to kind of demonstrate this, Brian is going to lead us in a sample of each one of these back to back, so you can feel the shift change. You can feel these different meters and understand what it is we're trying to do. Yeah? You ready?
He thinks highly of me because I've never done a 7-song medley, but here we go. This should be fun.
It's just a verse apiece, so we're not
You ready?
Ready? Everybody sing along with this, so you can feel this groove change.
Oh, worship the King, all glorious above, and gratefully sing His wonderful love. Our shield and defender, the Ancient of Days, pavilioned in splendor and girded with praise. When upon life's billows you are tempest tossed, when you are discouraged thinking all is lost, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord hath done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God hath done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God hath done. When my love to Christ grows weak, when for deeper faith I seek, then in thought I go to Thee, Garden of Gethsemane. Some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll fly away to a home on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Days are filled with sorrow and care, hearts are lonely and drear. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Jesus is very near. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Calvary, Calvary. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Jesus is very near. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. Heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of His Spirit, washed in His blood. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Walking alone at even, viewing the skies afar, bidding the darkness come to welcome each silver star. I have a great delight in the wonderful scenes above. God in His power and might is showing His truth and love. Oh, for its course to rest. Sure and safe abode with Jesus and the blessed. Rest for a weary soul, once redeemed by the Savior's love. Where I'll be pure and whole and live with my God above. Wow, warmed up you are now.
Man, all right, thank you. I gotta give Brian a round of applause for that. Man, that was awesome. I don't think in all my days I've seen anybody do what was that? 8 signature changes.
I almost got all the directing down. Not quite, but
So thoughts. I was just hearing your thoughts about that. Did you feel the meter change through all that, and what did it feel like, and what was your takeaway from that? Is it someone singing it? Maybe someone trying to lead it?
I can see the numbers, like how you were talking about the halves or whatever. I can see it in the songs now. I never seen that before.
Yeah, you can see it now. It's like, oh, that's what that's telling me. It's telling me it's a half a beat, or it's a 1 beat if it's an 8 time. That half note is a beat, but it's real packed together. I was trying to count, especially when we got to 8 count, and the more you got, it's like it's almost impossible to count 12 beats. So he's directing it like it's in 4 time, I think, pretty much, right?
Compound time.
Yeah, very nice. So yeah, you're now you're trying to understand what's this telling me. It's great. Yes.
I was, when you were in 4/4, I was thinking of John Philip Sousa.
Yeah, that, well, 2/4, he loved the marches.
Yeah, he did Stars and Stripes in 4/4.
Was that in 4/4?
Uh-huh.
When I think of John Susan, I'm always thinking of 2/4 time.
He did 4/4.
Did he?
Yeah.
If you think about
When we were emphasizing those spots, I was thinking of Stars and Stripes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Da, 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 da.
Yeah, left, right, left, right, left, right. This is why they write. I thought that would have been in 2/4. That's interesting. That's in 4/4.
Yeah, it's actually 4/4.
But anything that's like in a 2/4 or 4/4 goes left, right. They can feel that marching feel. It's very. You wouldn't march in 5/4. Left, right, left, right. Right. That's kind of like whoa. So yeah, it's meant to serve a purpose. It's meant to keep you in time. What other thoughts? What do you think, Mike? Yes, sir.
I noticed the change, but I didn't understand why.
Why?
How.
Or how it's changing?
Music business.
Well, that's what's kind of cool about this is it gives us. Where'd my clicker go? Somebody steal my clicker, or did I drop it? Oh, there it is. It gives us the meter is. Oh yeah, I'm going to be now. I don't. Every once in a while in a hymn, you'll see a change of meter. But what it'll generally probably do, whenever I've seen it, maybe George, you've seen something different. Like sometimes I'll pack a 2/4 in there, right? And it's only because you got a couple extra beats. So it's like instead of changing to 6/4 or something, it'll just throw a 2/4 measure and then it'll go back to 4/4. Sometimes you'll see that. And it's just to give us a couple extra beats.
Yeah, I think that's in like Step by Step.
Somebody did one the other day.
Someone wanted
Or-
to do an acapella music
One of our
center
new
there.
ones.
There's a lot of that.
Goodness
Yeah.
Goodness of God, maybe.
Yeah, somebody did one last week that did that, I noticed.
I laid it last night, 8:42, Children of the Heavens,
Okay, that
There's a
has a time
2/4.
change.
in there.
Yeah, so what it's doing is giving you a couple extra beats. It's letting you go to 6/4 for a moment. So it'll be 4/4 plus 2/4. And then it'll go back to 4/4. So you'll see that. But I have yet to see a song that goes 4/4 to 6/8
Oh, yeah.
in a hymn. Now I've seen that in modern music before. But I've never seen it in rock or something. I've seen that happen. Or I've seen 5/4 happen in a 4/4. But generally in hymns, it's staying the same basic denominator here. So that quarter note stays. Yes, sir.
I've sung Silent Night in 5/4.
You have sung it, or it is in 5/4?
I have sung it
Oh,
in
really?
5/4.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Somebody, what's that song that we were doing recently that we converted it? It was 3/4 but converted to 4/4. What is that song?
Oh, Higher Ground.
Higher Ground. Yeah, I've seen Higher Ground converted to 4/4, and it feels like, whoa, where's that extra beat coming from? That's not supposed to be there.
I think it's only in the chorus or something.
Not. Yes, it is the chorus. You're right about that. Yeah, they've made the chorus in the 4/4. We're lifting one,
it's
two.
the whole song.
No, it's the whole song.
Is it the whole song?
Mhm.
No, I don't think
I
so.
don't know.
Yeah.
On the new version, it is. Yeah, where you have the bass doing the lead, kind of the lead parts.
Yeah, if you think about Higher Ground. We're lifting on the upward 1, 2, time to 1, 2, and 3, and 1, right? Turn it into 4/4. We're lifting 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's like, whoa, where'd that extra beat come from? It's a totally different feel. So this is what meter does. It gives you the feel, right? What I want the singer or whoever's listening is to feel. It's really an emotional thing. So you build in a certain beat and a certain meter to have an effect. So what is this really telling us? So in 4/4 now, A quarter note is an individual beat, eighth notes are half, and then we've got something called 16th notes, which you don't see a lot of in hymns, because what they end up doing to make it simple, will convert the time. I think is one reason why we go to two time, is instead of having a bunch of 16th notes, I just convert it to two time, now an eighth note becomes a 16th note. If that makes any sense. We're going to look at that here in a second. But if you're in 4/4 time, you can end up with 16th notes. I have yet to see a 32nd note in a hymn, but maybe somebody could point one out. And so here are your beats. So your eighth note is happening in half beats. What I love about, and then this is an age-old technique, is this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. That's how you would. Now, imagine if this is too fast. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, a real high tempo. It gets really hard to. So that's why I would just convert this to 2/2 time. Right? It just makes it easier to digest. But that's the rhythm pattern for 4/4. What's the rhythm pattern for anything in? So a half note now is 2 beats. 1. So here you go. So, just a little tip here. You ever see these little things?
Yeah.
They're called ties. They tie 2 notes together. So in this case, if you look at the beat pattern here, the rhythm's going to be 1, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4. So your half note is saying you're going to have a note, you're going to have a sound every 2 beats in that case, in 4/4 time. Questions, thoughts? I know we're kind of going fast.
Is there a way that we can, this may be a little much, but is there a way that we can kind of do that and count that off so that we can kind of see it?
Absolutely.
Like, see it, feel it, hear it?
So we've got here's a metronome. 2, that's your, so half note here would be, here we go, 2. Right?
Yep.
So if we go back to the previous one, we maybe do 16th notes. So in this case, I'm going to have so you've got something happening every beat. Make sense?
No.
Yeah? Thank you, David. And then, what kind of happens fun here is you have something called triplets. Or you have dotted notes. Anybody know what a dotted note means?
Yes.
Colton.
You add half the note.
Half the note. That's exactly right. Love it. 10 points for Colton. So in a half note, what's half a note of a half note? Quarter. So how long is it going to last then? 3 beats. Right. So if I've got a dotted quarter note, how long is that going to last?
1.5.
1.5. That's exactly right. So anytime you see a dotted note, it means it's 1.5 times its length. So it starts to confuse the measure, right? So in this case, I've got 1.5 times a half note. It's going to be 3 notes. So I've got to have a beat here somewhere. It's either going to be a rest or it's going to be a quarter note or something. It makes it really complicated to see a dotted quarter note because now I've got to have an eighth note in there to take up that extra half a beat. And then you've got triplets. Anybody know what a triplet's supposed to do? Yeah, Jim?
That's where you have 3 beats in the space of 2.
3 notes in the space of 2 beats. Right. So if you think about
having kids.
yeah, exactly. So if you think about in the space of 2 beats, you see 1 and 2 beats here, you're gonna have 3 notes packed in there. So if you think about 1, 2, I'm gonna do a triplet. 4, 1, 2, 1 triplet. Feel that? So it feels really weird. So maybe I'm gonna make you play this. Let me see what this does here. 1, 2, 1, 2. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1 triplet. Man, it's like triplets will make your head explode. But they're kind of cool feel. 1 triplet. It's almost like you're jamming a waltz feel into a 4/4. You know what I mean? So you're trying to get this bum 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 in a span of 2 notes.
Well, do a 4/4 measure, just quarter notes to show the difference.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1 triplet. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 triplet. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 triplet. 3, 4. 1, 2. Feel that change? 1 triplet. 3, 4.
What song would that?
It's
Yeah, I know. The song has
Not
triplets in it.
yet.
Yeah, it's a song I didn't think about pulling one out. It's a song that has triplets in
Bruce
it.
Dickinson, Opus 1.
We'll have to find one. We're gonna figure out one that there's songs that have triplets in it. Pretty. They're not that common in hymns. I mean, they're not like all over the place. So I'll have to dig for that.
It just makes it sound like it's going a little faster for a second. So like you're like
Slowing down
1,
and speeding
2,
up.
triplet, 1,
Yeah,
2,
two. That's a good. Yeah.
Like,
Like
so it kind of makes it sound faster.
Yeah.
For just a short little period of time.
You're walking and then you did a little trip.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a good. Yeah.
Tripped over a
That's
crack.
probably where the
Yeah.
term trip came from. Yeah, because you're jamming this extra note into the same space, so it feels like you're whoop, 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 like you kind of floated like that a little bit. So again, it's for feel, it's for effect. That's what meter is all about. It's trying to give you an effect or a feel. And then what if we don't make a noise? Well, there's something called rests. So when no note is being sung, the singer is said to be at rest. So rests last for a number of beats, just like notes, only you're not making a sound. So again, on your handout, you've got these on there. A whole rest means you're not making a sound for an entire measure. So for 4 beats here, you're not going to make a sound. A half rest means you're going to rest for half the measure. In the case of 4/4, you're going to rest for 2 beats.
The thing, Drew, with that they taught us at WLI was just to be able to remember and recognize the difference with a whole rest and a half rest. They used it kind of like a top hat analogy, where back in the good old days, where a gentleman would take his hat off for a woman, like he would take the hat completely off and it would be upside down. And so if you look at the
Okay.
left one, think of it as like a top hat that's completely upside down. Whereas
You're a whole gentleman. But
Yes,
if you just
thank
kind of like
if you're half of a gentleman, you're just kind of tip the hat.
Okay.
See, I always learned it as a hole. Like a hole in the ground. That's how I learned it.
Yeah. It does take a little bit of memory science to figure out what it is that's, I've always, when I don't do this for a long time, I go, which one's hanging down again? Oh, that's the whole. So that's good. You have the hats all the way down.
You're a whole gentleman or a
You're
half
whole
gentleman?
Or you have gentleman. You just tip that. Very nice. And then,
They say that triplets are used on rap songs a lot, much more on rap.
There we go.
It's
All right.
used to
Always
we are the
wondered.
champions.
the gospel rap.
You're gonna lead us, can we get an example of that, Brian?
No, I-
Next week.
are you Googling songs with triplets in it?
Yes.
Google
Yeah,
hymns
yes.
with triplets in
Okay,
it.
so I googled hymns with triplets in it, and apparently there's a triplet group that sings hymns,
Oh,
and
okay.
that's what popped up. So I'm really hard.
Yeah, next time I don't know what the fun part of this is as you're in the congregation, we're singing songs and this stuff pops up, you go, I want everybody in the room to go, there's a triplet, whatever pops up on the screen, but there it is.
Bon Jovi's "Living on a Prayer" is triplets.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, I can see
But
that.
that's not Christian.
That's close.
But at least you get the idea.
You Googled hymns with triplets.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. So quarter rest means you're just resting for 1 beat. Eighth rest, so you're resting for an eighth of a beat, right, or half of a beat. This is where it gets kind of, it's not natural for us to think in half beats. It's like we're wanting to this downbeat feel, right? It's just natural when you're up, bop, bop, right? What if you rested on the downbeat, but then made a sound on the upbeat, you're gonna have this bop, bop, bop feel. Syncopated, but yeah, ooh, I like that. Ooh, word of the day, nice. So an eighth note is this weird looking thing. Anybody know what's that? Does that have a name?
The eighth rest.
Okay, it's an eighth rest. And then, so an eighth rest tells the singer to rest for the length of an eighth note. So thoughts, thoughts about that. Any other good things to share? Good stuff.
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
About back to the beginning at the G and D. What is an E flat and what is a D flat?
Yeah, so we're not gonna get into notes right now because we're actually gonna, next week we're gonna be looking at tones. But your A note right there can be either flat, right? It can be lowered half a step, or a G, which is right below it, can be sharped. So A flat is the same as G sharp. It's the same thing.
It's called
So-
enharmonic.
Yeah, we're gonna look at that next week about the different notes. But there's a little half step, which is what's really cool about Western music. Is Western music figured out the little nuances of the frequency change of half a note. Now there is probably a note in between there. There's a frequency in between there, but in diatonic music, we're not going to worry about it. It doesn't exist for our unless I tune my. I mean, I can go slightly flat, but nobody wants to hear that. You know what I mean? So there is something in between there, but in our world, we're only using 12 notes. I mean, we only have these 12 notes, these 12 frequencies. We have to tune our instrument or our voice down that quarter step. If you heard quarter step off, you'd go, whoa, that's flat. That sounds really bad. Fix that. Because our brains are stuck with this diatonic range. Yes, sir.
They used to tune things so that it would sound good in one key,
Mm-hmm.
but then you try to play in a different key and it was off because of that. So what they did, they came up with equal tempered tuning, so they put a black note between the two white ones, kind of in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And now no matter which key you play in, the difference is so small you don't recognize it. But now it's just one note between the two white. So if you play in the key of C, for instance, there's a half step between E and F and between B and C. And you can tune it so it sounds good in that key, but you play in a different key, you've got the half steps in a different position.
Mhm.
And to make all of them sound good, they call it equal tempered tuning, and that's when Bach wrote his well-tempered clavier to show that you could play in any key and it would sound okay if they just kind of halfway in between put a black beat.
Yeah. Yeah. As I say, without getting too far into the diatonic science, but there's always, a major key's got, one step, one whole step, one half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. That's so whatever key I do then, it's always the same thing. It's always one whole, one half, one whole, one half. Don't worry about that. But it's whatever.
You can hear the do re mi.
You can hear do re mi.
Do,
Yeah, in any key. So yeah, you can take that half whole combination and move it to any key and it always sounds.
Unless you're playing Peter Pumpkin Eater, you use all the flats.
That is all flat. Well, that's what key is that? The key of F sharp? Is F sharp all blacks? I think F sharp is all black. I can pull up my circle of fifths sharp. Good stuff. Good question. What other questions? Thoughts? Just thoughts. Questions. Interesting tips shared. David had a good tip with the hat. That was very nice. Any other good tips to share? Yes, sir.
So for like the rests, like above eighth and the notes above eighth, the number of tails, it goes up as the note gets smaller. So I figured you should probably just let it.
Yeah. Very nice. We put it on the handout. So if you see on the handout there, on the rests, the same thing. So you'll see the 16th notes has two flags. I think they call those flags. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So 8th note has one flag. 16th note has two flags. And you can see what happens if you tie 8th notes together. Their flags tie together. 16th notes, their flags tie together. And then, as Colton said, the rest do the same thing. So you look at the 8th rest has the one. What do they call that? A tail?
What do you call it? I just call it
I have no idea what you call that. A tail.
We'll call it tail.
We'll call it a tail. A mini flag.
Do you have another one of those?
Yeah, here you go.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, I got.
We got plenty. And so yeah, 16th will have 2 little flags. Well, how many do you think a 32nd has? 3 flags. How many does a 64th note have? So I suppose you can play 64th notes. You'd have 4 flags. So yeah, nice way to identify
So
the
you're dividing the note like a.
in half.
Yeah, in half.
Yeah, it's just like
And it gets smaller and smaller every time.
the imperial measuring system, right? You've
Like
got
the length of
4
which
to
you open.
1, 1/2, 1/4. You know, 1/8, 1/16, 1/32. Yeah, just because it keeps getting pushed in half, right? Very nice, good catch. Anything else? Oh, we're running out of time. Okay, so we're gonna so we were gonna do a song that did volume change. We didn't get this, so how about we just we'll wrap up here with a song. Just before we do that, just real quick, there's this
Actually, Drew,
yes.
go over this, and then we are going to do a more dynamic version of how he loves you in service today. So they'll be able to see this. So
this?
yeah, it'd be good to go
Okay.
over.
Very nice. So last thing we'll talk about today then is this concept of dynamic range. Dynamic range is the loudness or the volume at which a song is sung. So imagine now I'm going to combine meter with dynamic range. I'm trying to get a feel, right? So anybody know what these little P's and F's mean?
Yes.
It's in your handout. So P means piano. It's the Italian for soft. So 1 P means soft. 2 P's means
Pianissimo,
very soft. 3 P's, extremely soft. Yeah, so I love this. Pianissimo, 3 P's means is pianissimo. It's kind of cool. If you ever see an MP, that means medium soft. MF, medium loud. Loud forte. Fortissimo, very loud. 3 F's, fortissimo, extremely loud. Right? So it's telling you get really soft, get really loud. Right? And then these weird shaped wedge things, these are either crescendos or decrescendo. Yeah. So crescendo, this would be a crescendo out here, get louder. So it's telling you to this is the pace which you're going to get louder. Decrescendo, this is the pace which you're going to get softer. So you can see all these different things come into play. Rests, triplets, eighths and quarters. Telling me, so your brain will eventually get used to interpreting all this and reading it, and it'll just be like reading a book. You'll just be second nature after a while. But that's what those different symbols mean. This is all about dynamic range, how loud we want to sing, and how should we get loud and soft together. How do we sing together the right way? So if we don't understand what it's doing, we'll all follow along in the right way. So Brian, you want to take us through something like that? Do we have time?
Yes, during service.
Okay, sounds good.
It's not like the worship is gonna start without the worship leader.
So just something we kind of ran out of time. We really went through the
Like
time.
I said,
pretty fast.
watch for our communion song, and you're gonna see that, be able to follow that. So and if you don't follow all of it, just I'm gonna try and direct you to it. If I direct small, then we're singing small. If I direct big, then we're loud. So
Yeah.
we got both sides of that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it. Thoughts, comments, wrap us up. Anything?
I think sometimes you guys put on the screen like slower.
Yeah, we try to help.
Yeah.
If it's not
I do
included, if
see
you want to
that.
get a feel for a song, we might actually put that in there.
Yeah. And we didn't get to it today, but we'll touch on this. There's this thing called retardando, slow down, accelerando, speed up. So are you trying to change the tempo? That's all about tempo now. That's all about how fast are we going, right? So think about it. You've got meter. Am I waltzing, walking, hopping, skipping, right? I've got speed, tempo, speed up, slow down. I've got loudness, get loud, get slow. All these different things are directing and telling me what the writer of this is trying to express. So, yes, sir.
Music is like a foreign language. It's a language.
Yeah.
And something we're learning is like learning a foreign language, but it's a universal language.
It is.
I mean, you go to England, you go to France, you go anywhere, they
Even
all
Japan.
understand the same language. So if you learn music, you can you're good anyway.
That's right. That's right. Anyone who's speaking Western music, like some places are still doing pentatonic. In
Yeah.
India and Middle East, they still do a lot of pentatonic. Yeah. Yes, sir.
And it's a much easier language than English.
There's more rules as opposed to English has no rules. Right? Well, thank you all very, very much. I appreciate it. Looking forward to the song service today, and be looking for some of this in the hymns that we sang, and I think then we'll come back next week. We'll talk more about it, debrief, and we'll take it to the next step. Yeah.